Okay, everyone. So welcome to Chenrezig practice. So good to see you all here. And yeah, feel free to say hello in the chat box, where you're practicing from, how you're doing today. Um, Especially if you're new, would love to see who's new in the space. Right. And just before also, as we're getting started, I would love for, for anyone to check in about the practice, if you've been doing it for a bit with us, how it's going, how it feels, whatever. I'm just interested, just interested um, in how you all are doing with the practice so far. And we'll also have time for questions at the end as well to
Y'all can feel free to unmute yourselves or raise your hands or drop it in the chat, whatever feels good.
it's okay if no one wants to offer a little bit of a check-in. There we go.
Rod, just give me a shout out if you'd like me to read anything. Or
Oh
not.
yeah, I'm looking at them. Yeah. Sounds encountering practice expressed in what? Yeah. By the way, like, don't ever feel like you have to begin any reflection with, well, this may sound out there, because I live out there. So like it's I haven't I don't remember the last time I've been shocked or surprised by any experience anyone has had for a while. Um so just say it, let's normalize, the extraordinary experiences, so we just kind of bring that out in the open. So I know that there's always this like hesitation, this doubt, because what's real, what isn't, what am I imagining, all that's very ambiguous. I completely understand it. I get that. But over time, in the same way I had to do as well, was that I had to figure out how to understand what was true. I had to understand what was my legitimate experience compared to something that I was kind of making up, right? And that takes time to do. Um, there are ways that you can practice and train to connect to the expressions of deep intuition that will feel very different than something that's just being created, by the mind in the moment. But that's not something that I can necessarily teach, in one session. But all the practices are actually helping us to refine that attunement to what is happening, you know. Not all the random thoughts that we're having are random. You know, these thoughts are really tuning in and speaking to something that's happening or has happened or may very well will happen in the future. Um,
Two, did I see your hand up? If you would still like to have that hand up, okay. If not,
oh yeah, someone's hand is up.
My hand was up. I took it down, so I wasn't sure what to say, but
Oh,
I
let's say it.
thank you. I learned this practice at the virtual section of the Wonderwell retreat last year, and I haven't been to this group before, and I'm really grateful to be here and practice with you all. I've got a lot of energy today, kind of everything brings me to tears, sad tears, happy tears, angry tears, and I think this is the perfect place to land. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. You know, we're working with the essence, excuse me, we're working with the essence of the practice, right? And for me, the essence is really these different expressions of emptiness and energy, right? That everything arises from this experience of emptiness and is shaped by consciousness, you know, and we are practicing to return back to, well, this ocean of emptiness, right? To remember essentially who we are. And Chenrezig helps with that because Chenrezig is really about how do we initially cultivate a practice where we are falling in love with ourselves, you know, and this is incredibly important, right? For me, you know, because, you know, this is just these few days, like today, Father's Day, tomorrow, Juneteenth, Wednesday, summer solstice, you know, these are really powerful days for some of us. And particularly with Juneteenth being about freedom, freedom from my ancestors, this practice is related particularly to this point, which is freedom. Because essentially, you have to love yourself enough to want to be free, you know? And you have to love yourself also enough to want others to be free as well. Like you'll never get to ultimate liberation if you don't feel as if you deserve that liberation. And until we start really awakening that capacity of deep love and care for ourselves, you're not going to get anywhere in your practice, actually, you know. And this is why Chenrezig is so incredibly important for us, you know. And this is also the most generative, sweetest work that we could do, and it's also the hardest work that we can do as well, is to love ourselves, which, you know, also means that we begin to develop the capacity to hold space for everything that arises in our experience without reacting to it, right? Without flinching, even. I mean, wide open equanimity, where both the joy and the pain are held equally with an awareness, without flinching, because flinching is a reactivity that's actually about contracting, constricting around a stimulus. You know, it's about like shrinking our awareness into a kind of like and attention around a stimulus. And when our awareness shrinks and gets so tight around a stimulus, then we tend to actually get swallowed by that energy, or we fall into the illusion of being swallowed or consumed, by what we're contracting around, right? And then you start self-identifying with it. So that's when you're like, oh, I am sadness. I am traumatized. Like that I am is just an expression of the ways in which we have contracted around an experience, well, around any experience, because we can contract around pleasure as well, right? And with pleasure, it's like we contract around it because we're trying to hold on to it because we don't want it to disappear. We don't want it to dissipate. So you think you can hold on to pleasure, but pleasure isn't meant to be held on to. Pleasure is an expression of spaciousness, right? So what we think we're holding on to, or what we think we're fixating on, is this thing that will actually slip out of our fixation, and that will always be accompanied by deep disappointment. And then you try to capture that pleasure again, only to fixate on it, try to hold on to it. It's like trying to hold on to water. You're grabbing water, it's flowing out of your hands. And that's why we have such a complicated relationship. One of the reasons we have such a complicated relationship to pleasure. If we could actually understand that pleasure is about space, and that how we should actually expand and relax into pleasure instead of trying to fixate on it, trying to fixate on it, put it in the box, put it up for a rainy day when you need some pleasure. But we allow pleasure to have space. This is why practices like sympathetic joy are really profound, right? When we experience something pleasurable, and we think, may all beings experience this pleasure. Even the beings we don't like, may they too experience this pleasure, right? So this kind of, kind of shutting down, kind of fixating, we're always trying to open and expand. We're trying to open from these really tight experiences of concentration, and we're trying to expand out into awareness. And we're trying to expand our awareness back into an acknowledgement or an experience of our whole consciousness, and how our consciousness evades everything. It is the essence itself, right? So Chenrezig is, and really any deity practice, I would say, in the tradition, is all doing the same work, just coming at it from different angles, coming at it through different experiences, So again, when we're practicing Chenrezig, it's beginning this profound experience of connecting to space, right? And our innate capacity to hold everything in our experience and awareness without having, right, to fixate, to react to any one thing, right? So in the space, we transition into responsiveness. And so I can respond to what needs to be responded to, which means I can change what needs to be changed. I can do the work that needs to be done in order to cultivate these awakening experiences of deep care, right? And where are you at now, essentially? Are you connecting to that space, right? Where's the space at? Forget about Chenrezig. Chenrezig is just emptiness, and energy, right? Like tantric deities are just doorways into space, into emptiness, right? This whole teaching around if you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha, I think has different interpretations, absolutely. But as always, I have a different interpretation because that's what I do. Because why not? So for me, that saying is like actually helping me to understand that, like, when I think something's real, it's not, and I have to kind of disrupt it. Chenrezig is as real as we are. Chenrezig is as real as any phenomenon, right? So when I start fixating on Chenrezig, I know that Chenrezig is actually saying, you know what, I'm not the main event here. I've just invited you into a relationship, but your real relationship is to emptiness itself, right? And again, emptiness isn't this cold, void, icy thing, right? It can't be, because there's suchness, there's energy, that permeates. It's the energy itself, the suchness that gives rise to phenomena, right? It's the suchness that our minds are expressions of as well, this energy, right? And we talk about cold and void, but cold and void are experiences that do not exist in emptiness, And I think sometimes with, Western philosophy in particular, you start talking about nihilism, and it's just this expression, of our own, self-identification with the world of phenomena and sensation. It's like we keep centering the sense of I that can experience, but in emptiness, that doesn't exist. I isn't there, right? So what's cold? What's void? What's love got? What's love got to do with it? And as always, I'm going to dedicate this session also to Tina Turner as well. Until I feel like she's taken care of in the spirit world. But there's no such thing as love in emptiness. There's nothing in emptiness, that we're identifying with, that we can understand. It is beyond sensation, and it's beyond dualism. It's beyond suffering. Like, it's beyond suffering itself. And this is why, in tantric traditions, we're always super excited about going to emptiness. As my teachers say, going to meet God. We're going to God. We're going to emptiness, because that's important to get glimpses, to get a taste of what that freedom feels like, even if for a second. You only need a second. I think a second is very generous, and you're very fortunate to get a second of experiencing emptiness. You need a split second, maybe. Emptiness is something you never forget, because emptiness is who you are. Like, you never forget home, because that's where you're from, right? Unless you don't want to be at home, then that's a whole, I guess that analogy doesn't work for you if you hate home. But, you never forget who you are, right? And it's Pride Month as well. As a lot happens in June. I don't think we get that. Do we get that? There's a lot of stuff happening in June. Um, so you have Pride Month, right? And Pride isn't a party. Pride is like remembering who we are and choosing to be who we are, choosing to live as fully and authentically as possible, right? And to live in a world where people would rather choose to be subjugated than to be free, because subjugation feels easier than the responsibility of freedom and authenticity. Freedom and authenticity means that you can't rely on systems to tell you who you are anymore. Like, you can't rely on institutions to define you. You have to do that labor. That's what people are terrified about, right? You know, like, we're in this period, this time right now where people are realizing, and have actually, this is a new, but people are really, really taking it seriously that they can define who they are. And if we take that agency back for ourselves to say, this is who I am, and this is what I need to be called, and this is how I want to be identified, then you're taking all this agency back from systems and institutions that a great majority of other people still rely on, right? And that's terrifying, because if you're making a different choice, then perhaps this thing that I have allowed myself to be defined by isn't real. That it's not, there's another choice to make. And if I attempt to consider that I have been shaped by something without my consent, then I have to deal with the heartbreak and the rage. And if you don't want to deal with that, then you weaponize it against others, right? And you weaponize it specifically, one, because you don't want to deal with what you're experiencing, you don't have the capacity to deal with what you are experiencing, and you weaponize it because you find that there's a lot of power in erasing the people who are acting as mirrors for you, reflecting back to you your capacity to make a change, to make a different choice. And that's painful. So let's erase the people who are mirrors for us, right? Let's legislate these people out of existence. Let's create laws and like whatever that makes it difficult for people to choose to be different and to be themselves, right? But you have to understand this, right? That people's pain isn't about you necessarily, right? So when people are trying to police me, for me, that is a sign that like they're functioning out of a lot of deep hurt if you're that interested in restricting my freedom, right? And that's where compassion and love come in, right? Compassion is what sustains us through these intense periods, of oppression, right? Like the deep compassion that actually helps us to understand that like everyone is suffering, and everyone thinks that they're trying to do something to tend to the suffering, but they're not actually doing what they need to do. Instead, they're creating harm to themselves and others, And in that kind of space, you will conflate discomfort and, well, being uncomfortable and being unsafe. You're going to get those two things real confused, right? Like, being uncomfortable doesn't always mean we're unsafe, right? But that's where we go because we don't have the capacity always, or some people never have the capacity to discern like the experiences of discomfort and the experiences of being unsafe, right? It just gets locked together. When you're unsafe, what are you going to do when you're unsafe? For a lot of people, you're going to fight like hell. right? Or, you know, sometimes if you go along the trauma, you know, kind of like continuum, then you make freeze, you make, you know, a lot of things that you can do, you know, but what we're seeing is a lot of people fighting because they feel uncomfortable, you know. Yeah. For me, yeah, it's a dangerous time for many of us, you know. It's a dangerous time for many of us who are choosing to practice freedom, right? And we're choosing to practice authenticity, right? It's dangerous. Um, but this is also a really important time because this is a time when many of us will earn our experience of freedom. Instead of just talking about it and reading about it, this is the time where you actually have to hit the ground and you have to be like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, right? In the same way, our, you know, ancestors and elders, you know, at Stonewall, like acted up, right? Um, you know, in the same way, some of my ancestors, like enslaved ancestors, chose freedom, chose to like leave and escape like the plantation, knowing that like there was no guarantee that they would survive, right? So these are the things that we're thinking about, you know, like this is when you're entering into the work of Chenrezig, right? You're talking about freedom from contraction, freedom from suffering, and you're talking about expanding into space, opening, right? Which will also mean letting your hearts break. Because when you get space, all the pressure around all the emotions that we keep kind of bottled up will actually begin to expand outward. It's like the heart will literally break. And that energy will be exposed and held within space itself, right? And so we're also afraid of spaciousness because we're afraid of what our broken hearts have to tell us about who we are and what we've survived as well. So you may want to be free. You may be working to be free. And let me tell you, I know some really amazing, brilliant, gifted, you know, activists and organizers and change makers who whose work looks great, but haven't done the internal work of brokenheartedness, right? And there are people that we love, we follow, we celebrate who haven't done that work yet, and it's going to reveal itself, and it does reveal itself actually, you know. Like this is the age of the heart, of the spirit, not just of action and organizing. Like you're not going to organize yourself out of the apocalypse, right? The apocalypse is just truth telling. You can't, how are you going to organize the truth, right? The apocalypse has to be allowed to happen, right? The apocalypse is actually asking us to change. All the apocalypse is change. It's just change. We're changing. Everything's changing, right? But there are many people who won't be able to change, right? No matter how much we pray and practice, no matter how much we argue with people, you know, on social media, or how much we yell at people in their face, no matter how passive aggressive we are to people, you know, no matter how much we vote Democrat, right? It's just like, you know, like that's not the change we're talking about. The change we're talking about is a radical opening of the heart to reveal the capacity for us to experience more space and more openness and more connectivity to one another and to the earth, right? And to the unseen world. We have to cut through these layers of like imperialism and colonialism and all the isms and come back to the earth and to let the earth guide us into a more liberated future. That again, that liberated future is about our capacity to allow ourselves, to allow our hearts to be broken and for our broken hearts to be held by space. And when our broken hearts are held by space, it is also held by the Buddhas, you know, and the Bodhisattvas who reside in space, and they're there to help us, right? They tend to our broken hearts. They offer us the practice and the work that we begin to move through the labor of metabolizing, right, and consuming our broken hearts, right? And we deepen our compassion and care for ourselves and others, and we expand into the space, and the space helps us to experience clarity, right, or wisdom, right? And we're doing all of this in practice. And you have to want to be free, because that's the only thing that I'm giving you in practice. Like you're gonna misunderstand what I do, because I'm not interested in comfort. You know, I'm interested in liberation, right? Surely they can be very similar things, but comfort as a goal is limiting. Happiness as a goal is limiting. Liberation as a goal encompasses everything, you know? Like why, you know, I don't know, why, you know, settle for a 1992 Honda Accord when you can get a 2023 BMW? I mean, like, I don't want to like judge any of you who have a 1992 Accord, because that was a good year for Accords. You know, but like, why go for something comfortable when you can go for like the whole thing? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go for the whole thing, because this whole thing, this samsara, this carceral state isn't this is a volatile situation right now. Like samsara has always been volatile, you know? It's just so fucking unpredictable. So you get to this place where it's like, you know what? Maybe I should just go back home. You know, maybe I should stop hanging out here and all of this shit and just go straight back home, right? You know how to get there. Like every being knows how to get there, but we've gotten so distracted. But we get the breadcrumbs, like the breadcrumbs are there. So many beings have emanated into this world to show us how to get there, right? Our intuition is always pointing us there, but we're so distracted right now. And this, at the beginning, at this point, this is when, like, you develop this deep aspiration to want to be free. Like, even take a few minutes as we start our practice, like, just to say and to think and to reflect, when I do my practice, I'm doing it to get free. And as I am getting free, I will also help others to get free as well. That's love. When you want someone to be free, that is love, right? And you don't have to like anyone to want them to be free. I want Donald Trump to be free, but I will not be hanging out around him. Like, I want Marjorie Taylor Greene to be free, right? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene represents my hometown, and I need to do something about that. These people I don't like. I don't mind telling them I don't like them. But it doesn't mean that I want them to be oppressed and bound and punished and to suffer. Like, I want you to be free, because if you were free, you wouldn't be creating all this fucking nonsense for the rest of us, right? If you were at least happy, this would be a different situation, you know? But freedom, and take this seriously, freedom, I am practicing to experience freedom and to help others experience freedom, because this is the most important offering that I can give to myself and to all beings, is freedom. And freedom, remembering that I, the sense of I in everything, is simply expressions of this emptiness, this vast, profound, boundless emptiness, right? This space and this energy, this suchness. And what does that feel like to begin to offer that aspiration? When do you feel that aspiration awakening in your body? Because that is the same aspiration that Chenrezig formed, right? To free all beings. I mean, frankly, this is all the aspiration that all the Buddhas formed, but particularly Chenrezig, to free all beings, and Tara as well, to free all beings from suffering. And Chenrezig specifically, whose activity is actually an expression of space. And when I say space, I mean the holding of everything. Chenrezig means great eye, so it's about seeing, but it's more than seeing, it's holding everything in equilibrium. That everything is held. What does it feel like when someone holds you and relates to you unconditionally? What does it feel like for someone just to see you, to hold you, but they don't want anything from you except for you just to be? And this aspiration sparks space for you. And to remind us that we are actually always held by space. Right? This is the birthplace, or I would say the birth experience of all the Buddhas, but in our case right now, the birthplace of Chenrezig, this one aspiration: may all beings be free. And when I say all beings, I'm always including myself. So what I mean is all beings, including myself, may we all get free. Really, really work with this. May we all experience liberation. May we all get free. Give me a good minute of working with that aspiration, just like really feeling it in your body. May we all get free. Free beyond duality, free beyond suffering, free beyond the illusion of I and self. Free beyond binaries, free beyond fear, free beyond hunger, free beyond inequality, free beyond oppression, free beyond even the heartbreak. Free beyond everything, returning back, remembering who we are. I can't help others to remember who they are if I don't know who I am. And there's so many people in the world right now who are so loud, have all this influence, and they don't even know who they are. And so they just create more confusion for the rest of us. Who are you? And you are nothing but an expression of emptiness and space and energy. And that everything is nothing but that same expression. And allowing that aspiration, that wish to like actually begin to blossom and open in the heart center. For a couple more seconds. So just adding a little more to the practice now and shifting your attention to the breath when you're ready. And just beginning to notice the in breath and the out breath. And now imagining that you're breathing in and out of the heart center. So now, as you're breathing into the heart center, I want you to say to yourself, I deserve to be free. So as you're breathing in, I deserve to be free. Breathing that intention into the heart center. And that phrase, that thought, will begin to activate the heart center even more. So again, breathing in, I deserve to be free. And just exhaling for now. I deserve to be free. And you can add specific things that you want to be free from if you want. So you can say, I deserve to be free from suffering. I deserve to be free from oppression. Right? And so forth and so on, right? And again, just really opening deeply to these aspirations. I deserve to be free. So as you continue to breathe in, inhale in, saying, I deserve to be free. And then on the exhale, I invite you to say, may all beings be free. Or actually, all beings deserve to be free, just to make that parallel. So breathing in, I deserve to be free. Breathing out, all beings deserve to be free. And letting go of kind of the resistance of like, having to consider the people who've hurt us the most also deserve to be free. Letting that go, just saying all beings deserve to be free. And just like when we were saying, I deserve to be free from something, perhaps, you can also add that to the out breaths. All beings deserve to be free from oppression or, whatever feels appropriate for you. And of course, as we're doing this, we're really beginning to awaken the essence of Chenrezig and our heart centers, where Chenrezig actually abides, in the heart center. And as we're moving through this, we can actually imagine that there is energy in the form of perhaps white light, very soft white light that begins to awaken in the heart center. And that white light begins to radiate through our whole bodies. And this phrase, that I deserve to be free, begins to really feed and intensify that awakening energy in the body. And so after a while, it can be like we're becoming stars, like not like Beyonce stars, but like we're becoming like stars in the galaxy. Like we're like Tara, right? We become stars in the darkness of delusion. And in the darkness of incarceration, we begin to glow and light up with this aspiration about freedom for ourselves, for everyone. And we're attuning, to this experience of freedom, which is just remembering who we are. And in this space, in this state, we become children of Chenrezig. Right? And as we exhale this wish, for beings to be free, that all beings deserve to be free. As you're exhaling that aspiration out of the heart center, imagine that you're also exhaling this radiance, this light out of the heart center into the world all around us, where this aspiration as this light begins to create the causes and conditions for all beings to be free. So as you're doing all of this, breathing in with aspiration, breathing out with the light and aspiration, let's start humming to begin with. Start humming the mantra, Chenrezig mantra, which is again Om Mani Padme Hum, which is homage to the jewel in the lotus. It's about union, about things coming back together and being held by space. Okay, so we'll begin by humming, filling the humming wherever in the body you can feel it, but definitely noticing the humming in the heart center. Right? Mm, 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 So allowing ourselves to come back into a normal breath, returning our attention to this radiance of light radiating from us. We make a final wish, an aspiration for all beings to be free from suffering. And with that final aspiration, we imagine that we, our bodies, begin to dissolve into this white light. And this white light slowly begins to dissolve into emptiness. And now where awareness is released to expand out into emptiness and space itself. And we hold this open awareness, not clinging to anything, but just resting, allowing our awareness just to hold everything that arises. And so when you're ready, allowing your body to reform. So beginning to connect to the solidity, the weight of your body again. Connecting to how the seat is rising to hold your body as well. And then offering some simple, slow awakening movements to your body, a few deep breaths as well. All right. So thank you all so much for your practice as well. And like with every practice, I know I have never quite taught the same practice more than like 3 times, but I think that this is such a really wonderful, easy practice to incorporate into your practice, into your, whatever daily practice, on the spot practice. Um, yeah, there's a lot of like changes coming that I'm excited about just all the work that I'm doing. Of course, I have a new book out this year, but there's going to be a lot more organization to what I'm doing, and more of an effort to really capture what I'm doing and to create kind of paths and stages of practice, that I can, that people can actually just kind of start tuning into with a lot of support, as well. So that will be coming, as well, including, here in Atlanta on July 1st, we'll be having a 1-day meditation retreat, as well, and that's like meditation. I never do meditation, straightforward meditation retreats anymore, but like that's kind of like the beginning of just like creating a really strong foundation for meditation. Meditation is the the primary technology here, so if there's no strong meditation practice, there's no accomplishment, there's no realization, because this is the path of the mind, of training awareness. Um, Not just rituals and ceremonies and visualizations, everything, but the foundation is a strong capacity to to hold awareness, to be in awareness. You know. Um, I'll take the rest of the time. If there are any questions, we'll take a few minutes for questions. If anyone has any, you can type them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well.
Lama, I know there was one question from the beginning that was in the chat that was asking about the relationship between these teachings and Prajnaparamita and Heart Sutra and Zen friends.
Well, yeah. Also, that reminds me, I will be giving a 3-part, I guess, Dharma talk series on the integration of contemporary abolition and the Heart Sutra later this summer. Um, and then I will kind of, it's going to be a little bit of a preview for the book, but spiritual abolition, um, and how I understand spiritual abolition from the Heart Sutra, as well. So you'll get information about that hopefully by, um, maybe the end of the week or the beginning of next week. Anyway, the question. I mean, this is all, like this is all it's the saying, like all roads lead to Rome. So like everything is everything. Prajnaparamita is Chenrezig, Chenrezig is Prajnaparamita. The Heart Sutra is the the framework. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Like all these roads are leading to the intersection of form and emptiness. And it should be leading us out of conceptual thought into an experience of this. So you begin to feel how form and emptiness can express themselves at the same time in any moment without feeling as if like there's a contradiction. It's actually not a contradiction. Once you start actually feeling this is like, oh, like there's, yeah, form is empty, emptiness is form, you know. But it has to be felt to get to that place, not intellectualized, but felt. Um, Prajapamita, right? Prajapamita, as it arises out of the Heart Sutra with the Gate Mantra, as well. Um, that's, I think the Gate Mantra is one of the most powerful, profound mantras in the tradition, right? Much more intense than a wrathful mantra. Because the Gate Mantra says that, like, once you get to the edge, keep going, you know. And once you get to that edge, keep going. Once you get to the cliff, fall off. Like, once you hit the wall, go through it. I mean, that's pretty much what we're doing. That's how you get free. Is that, like, you let go of the illusion of everything and just keep moving, keep going forward. Okay, there's a question, I think, from someone.
Go for it, Amy.
Hi, thank you so much, Lama. So this is something that I've been kind of struggling with and practicing with as like a koan, and based on two different things you've said that are, I don't know, there's kind of a tension about the social aspect of our practice and our lives, about how, on the one hand, like, we shouldn't use our practice to separate us from other people, like, oh, I'm Buddhist, I'm practicing liberation, and you're not. So it should be creating more harmony in a way, but at the same time, like, because we are doing something that's so different, a lot of people can be threatened by our practice.
Yeah.
So maybe they're reacting and it is kind of separating us. And so I'm just kind of wondering how to work with that. And I think the answer is compassion. But if you have anything to say.
Well, thank you, because when in doubt, go to compassion. So you're not wrong. So you're doing
And you've said that. Yeah.
it. So you're doing it absolutely. And then I would add to it that you can't take responsibility for your decision to get. You can't take responsibility for other people's reaction to your decision to get free. And that's a personal lesson that I had to learn. So, like, I'm not responsible for your fixation to rigidity and incarceration. You I've given up lots of things. I've given up a lot of relationships because people just can't hold the intensity of what I'm choosing to do, right? And it's okay. Like, being a bodhisattva doesn't mean I just kind of stick around and try to get people on board. Being a bodhisattva means I keep going forward. Gate gate, right? Like, I keep moving forward, right? And the people who are ready to get free will join me. Like, the heartbreaking thing here is that, like, you will realize that people aren't really ready to do the work, right? And the most heartbreaking thing above that is that, like, sometimes you just kind of have to move beyond them and say, you know what, you'll be ready one day. I have to do this. And so the question for all of us is, like, what are we willing to give up to get free? Right? And the answer is you should be willing to give up everything. Because nothing's ever lost. That's the other thing. Like, nothing's gonna. And this is a cycle that we're in. It's like people just don't get chucked out of the cycle. Like, it's just like a cycle. It's like you're not really giving up. You're just letting go of expectations and fixations and agendas and judgments. about how you think people should be and what they should do and all of this other stuff, there's a lot of space that opens. And that space that you open for yourself actually begins to take care of others in ways that maybe we're not conscious of immediately, you know? But it will, you are making an impact. And it may not be an impact that you see in this life, but again, everything's a cycle. So, there's always a road.
It's like their reaction isn't personal, I guess. Like this is about where they're at.
Yeah, it's about where they're at. And it can also be about love that they think they have for us, but it's actually still about themselves. It's about their fear, about what we're doing. Yeah. I mean, this work costs. Mhm. Well, thank you for the question. Absolutely. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any burning question? Or something? We have one hand from Sean.
Hi, Lamara. Thank you. I had kind of a technical question about the practice.
Yeah.
What I've been experiencing is, and often the instruction is like we kind of build up and we go into just space,
Yeah.
right? And we're just like staying in the experience of spaciousness. And what I experience is like when I'm practicing the mantra, it feels like it's like a railing for me. Like it helps me concentrate, it helps me focus. But then if sometimes I get to like the spaciousness and so I stop chanting the mantra, I try to just focus on space and I can feel it, but I lose it. Like
Yeah.
I like other thoughts start coming up.
Yeah.
I start going into like, I see things and go into like all different kinds of experiences and I have to like walk myself back. But the thing is like if I'm just practicing like breath work or just focusing on my breath, I feel like I'm more grounded and like, oh, I noticed that, let's let it go. But once I've worked myself into the spaciousness, it's like I don't feel like I have the ability to like I'm just gone. I'm like I don't even notice that I'm gone. And so I was wondering if you had any like instructions for that.
Yeah, two things. And I think you point this out is that the mantra is an anchor, right? And that you can use the mantras, the mantra does hold us. It's a grounding, right? But then you let go of that. So it's like, I always think about the ocean and the sea here. It's just like, I'm paddling, and then I just stop paddling in the sea and I just floats. When you get into that kind of space, the problem that you're having is you're trying to fixate on what space is, and it's beyond a fixation. It's beyond something you can concentrate. You don't concentrate on space, you know. Um, Instead, concentration has to expand into awareness. So you're just expanding. You're becoming space, essentially, not focusing on it. You are space in that moment. And that's going to bring up some fear because we fixate on space because we're not ready to hold the expansiveness of space. And we're afraid of that expansiveness because we think that we're going to be annihilated in that space. We think we're just going to expand out into nothing. That's not going to happen because space is actually taking care of you, particularly when we're practicing with a deity like Chenrezig. Chenrezig is the space. So Chenrezig is going to actually be holding you, even though you think you're just kind of drifting and expanding out. You'll come back. Like you haven't transcended ego enough not to come back from it, right? You know. So just to trust, I guess what I'm saying is that you have to trust the space. Like let go, let space be, and just expand and open and see what happens.
So what should be, because like what happens is I feel like sometimes I'm almost dreaming. And then it's like I have to, and I'm like, oh no, I'm still doing this practice and I'm kind of in that space. So is there a particular relationship I should have to the phenomena that arise there? Like, should I be trying to bring myself back? Because I feel like I'm like, well, if I'm just dreaming, I feel like I'm not actually doing it. Or I feel like I'm not having enough awareness.
Yeah. So in that space, you can you can make choices in that space, right? And this is important because we're trying to develop agency over everything. So when you get into space, I know it's really easy for us to start journeying, but it's also really important that we have this agency to say, no, I'm not going to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have another, space and time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we just don't want to just like get swept up into the journeying. We always want to give consent for everything that happens in that space. Like that's what we're training for, and like in Buddhism, like in Buddhist meditation, I am making choices consciously about what happens, right? And yeah, and then again, yeah, there are spaces where yeah, it's time to journey, let's go do that. And you have to have spaces where I'm like, I'm not doing that right now because you want to always train that agency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. A good journey is sweet. It takes us out of like all the stuff and it takes us to places we want to go and takes us into teachings and all kinds of stuff. But we also have to have the capacity to say no as well because that's going to deepen our work to get free because getting free ultimately is going to be a very conscious choice. you know, a choice where you have a lot of agency and say, no, this is it. I have to do this. Instead of feeling as if we're getting swept all over the place. That's the what is it? That's slip of mine. Anyway, one more quick question. Oh, I was asked if I'm going to ever offer the Nyunye practice. Well, I've been thinking about it for a couple of years, and I have to translate it um, in a way that makes sense for people. Because a lot of people, you can't practice it in a really orthodox way. It's really not that accessible. It will kill you. If it's like, it will Oh, so Nyunye, I'm sorry. I'm just talking like everyone knows what this is. Um, A Nyunye is a fasting practice based on Chenrezig. It's a 2-day fasting practice where all you do is chant and do prostrations for 2 days. The fasting happens on the second day of the ritual, and you're practicing and prostrating and all of this, and you can't drink or eat anything the whole day, even medication. You know. And if you're like hardcore, you don't even swallow saliva either. Um, so it's real intense. Like I would say it's um like tapas and yoga. So tapas is like heat, like it's the heat that burns. Negative karma and fixation. So it's like you're intensifying tapas and yin practice. But it's such a beautiful practice as well. But it's full on. So yeah, that's on my radar to translate it in a way that makes sense for this land that we're practicing on. So I'm waiting for the land, as the land always does, to tell me, to give me insights into how to translate something. Or it may be something completely new. I'm really interested in like creating new forms of practice that relate to the traditional forms in the tradition, but new forms that speak to us really directly and that aren't so dangerous, you know, and much more accessible uh, for more people. So So I'm working on it. Everyone, listen. I listen. I'm rolling out the Heart Sutra. Like, give me an inch of space. It's like you're already like, well, the Heart Sutra's coming out, so you can take on another request. But I'm working on it. Don't worry. It's gonna be a lot of new stuff. Don't listen. New Saints is gonna be a whole plate of new practices. So, so you're gonna be full of practices by this fall. Yeah, so that's it. So thank you all for your practice, and please join us tomorrow night for Chenrezig, for Medicine Buddha, and we'll do our solstice and Juneteenth practice tomorrow. So I'm going to bring those two as I often do um, on this week of Juneteenth and solstice. Okay, so thank you everyone. Please take care of yourself. Please practice. And I'll see you soon. Okay, bye, y'all.